Looks like most students have logged in now, so we'll slowly get started. Once again, a warm welcome to this webinar during our applicant weeks. My name is Maria Lindblad, and I work as an international marketing manager here at Lund University, and I will be the moderator today. And today we are talking about our program in service management. So I hope you're all in the right place. This webinar is being recorded, so if you have any friends who want to see this webinar after, they will be able to do that. Or if you want to rewatch it again, or if you need to log out early or anything like that, don't worry, you will get a chance to watch a recording later. If you have any questions during the webinar, which we encourage very much, we're here to answer your questions. You can write those in the Q&A function, and it's also possible to like or upvote questions in the Q&A. If you see a question in there that you also have, please show us that you have the same question, and we will prioritize those questions. Another thing I want to mention today is that today's focus is on the program in service management. So we are not going to be talking about general things such as how to apply or scholarships, anything like that. We do have specific webinars about that as well during the applicant weeks, and there will be more coming up later this week. So if you have more general questions, we would recommend that you go to those other webinars and talk to us there, where we can answer all the details about that. Today, we want to make the most of the time with the program staff that we have here in service management, so that you can learn everything about the program and what it's like to be a student at service management. So without further ado, let's get started. And first of all, of course, we want to welcome our panelists. So let's start with you, Elin. You can introduce yourself.
Yes, hello there. My name is Eileen Bomenel, and I'm one of the teachers at the Department of Service Management. I think you could say that my special focus is on the academic literacy that you need to do a master's thesis. So you will find me in many of the courses on academic writing, but also theories of social science and methods of social science, and anything that you need for writing your thesis.
Interesting. Thank you, Elin. And Malin?
Yeah, my name is Malin Sillinger, and I have different roles at the department. I am the program director for the master's programs that we have, and that means that I would do the long-term planning of the program, and I would also be one of those who will look at the applications that come into the department. And as a program director, I have a lot of contact with the students that we have at our department right now. And besides that, I am a teacher and I'm a researcher, and I actually research and teach about the same things. I am, on the one hand, interested in tourism and place, and on the other hand, I'm interested in method-related questions. So those of you who will come to Helsingborg and to our program in service management will meet both me and Elin Bomenel at the method course, for example. So this is what we fill our days with.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned already a lot of things there. I think we're going to want to dive deeper into during this webinar for sure. Just to give everybody an overview in case they don't know already, the program in service management has a lot of different specializations, so it's very broad and applicable to many areas. Could you perhaps, that's for you, Malin, just introduce the different specializations that you have to the program?
Yeah, absolutely, I can. And yeah, for your knowledge, we have gone from 3 to 5 specializations during the past years. So yeah, I will do my best to introduce them. So one specialization that is new is service management, and then culture and creativity management, where we look at the cultural spheres and the management of them, and that could be non-profit organizations, and that could be like you know, culture and museums organization, and so on. We also have a retail specialization where we look a lot on how retail is being done, how consumption is being done, and especially influenced by such developments like digitalization and so on. We have supply chain management, where the focus is very much on service when it comes to logistics. So what is the service behind such logistics question? So it's less of a technical specialization, but more of focus on service in technical areas. And then we have sustainable service management, a theme that we all think that is very much needed in the world that we live in today. And last but not least, we would have the tourism specialization, where we would, among others, look at sustainable tourism development, value creation, and digitalization of tourism. So we have 5 specializations, and when applying for our programs, you would indicate which specializations you are interested in. So you would have to choose one specialization for your application.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for that overview, Molly. And I think it's good to just start with that so that everybody knows exactly what the options are. So I have several questions related to that as well, but you said that when you apply, you already choose which specialization you want, but are there also parts of the programs that are common to all specializations and then you kind of branch out, or are they completely separate tracks from the beginning, or how does it work in terms of the structure?
Yeah, so we have both actually. We have courses where all specialization students are included, so that are our big courses. And then we have the small ones for the specialization. So for example, courses like Introduction to Service Management, or the Management of Service Organizations, or the Method of Social Science. This goes for all students. And that is also a possibility to get to know all students in the big group. We are usually around 90 to 100 students, so we have big classes, and this is a nice way of getting to know many people and networking with them. And then we have the smaller specialization courses, and it's about half-half. So in the specializations, we would have between 15 and 25 students. Depending on the specialization itself.
Okay, so it's then 15 to 25 per specialization normally, and then if you bunch together bigger classes, you will have students from several of the specializations.
Yeah, exactly, correct.
Yeah, okay, interesting. So what would you say, this is perhaps a little bit of a trick, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it's also a bit of a warm-up question, in the sense that why do you think that, what's special about the program, or why do you think that students should apply to your specific program in service management instead of something else available in other European universities, for example? Is there specific difference or something that you specialize on that's unique? And that could be for either Malin or Elin, or whoever feels called. Yeah. Elin, do you want to start, or should I?
You start, Malin.
I start, yes. So we are the program in service management, and this means that we look at many aspects from a service perspective. So we would look at questions of economics from a service perspective. We would look at the question of sustainability from a service perspective. So we have many applicants from, for example, business administration, and they will partly feel that they know what our program is, but we have different approaches. And one such difference is also that we have different backgrounds when it comes to the teachers. So we are multidisciplinary. So for example, Elin is a historian. I myself, I'm a human geographer. We have sociologists, we have people from logistics, we have people from economics, and so on. So I think, well, content-wise, this is what makes us special. When it comes to how we think about education and research, I would also say that what makes us special is that we put very much effort in questions of pedagogy. We are a bunch of teachers. We are really interested in this, and we are also trying to work together from different parts of the department. So teachers would work together quite closely with administration, and we would work quite heavily together with language pedagogues who would come into our classes and do workshops in, how do I actually read an article? How do I actually train in writing a good exam answer? And things like that. So I think we have a quite broad interest in questions on learning.
Very interesting.
You know, Malin, you said that you have to be interested in service to consider one of our programs. And I think you've got to be interested not only in service, but also in the perspective of social sciences. So you come from all sorts of wonderful backgrounds, and they are cherished, and we use them because other students can learn from you. But you really have to have an interest in social sciences, I think, to study with us. But the thing is, right, it's true what Malin says, we really care about academic literacy. That's what we call it. So you don't have to come from a social sciences background. We spend a lot of time, and it starts even before you come to the program. You'll be watching films for a full day or two with me to learn what this academic literacy is about. What is it that you need to know about these perspectives so that you can, if you like, learn more about the service perspective on the different fields that you might be wanting to specialize in.
Wow. Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm learning a lot here too. This is great to know. You mentioned already a little bit about this, what kind of, that you are interdisciplinary, you're getting people with slightly different backgrounds, and you were adding here, Elin, that you need an interest in social sciences. So that leads to my question, what kind of students are you looking for? Like, who should apply to service management, and what is your ideal student? What do they have in common? If you look at the different types of applications you receive.
We are looking for people who are interested in learning and acquiring knowledge, which enables them to look at our society in a critical way. So we are less reading texts on how to do something or how to solve a problem directly. We would rather take a first look at, okay, so what kind of phenomenon is this? And how can we understand what it is? And then go on to look at, okay, so how does this relate to other questions and so on? So very much students who are really trying to understand the society that we are living in. So curiosity, but also students who are generous in sharing their knowledge and their acquiries. So, for example, we would do a lot of group work, and when you are doing group work, you are asked to share what you're good at and to learn from each other. So it's very much about learning from the literature and learning from the teachers, of course, but you will be asked and you will learn to learn very, very much from each other. And in order to do that, you need to be a bit generous and to invite people to solve an assignment together with you.
Yeah. Very interesting. I wrote down here problem solver, curiosity, and sharing. So as some kind of keywords there that you mentioned, Malin, and I think that really. What about the academic side? Because I know that in your entry requirements, you're talking about having credits in either service management or business type of subject. But do you have anything else there you would like to add in terms of the special sort of academic background that you look at from your applicants?
Yeah, Yes, we would look at backgrounds in mostly, well, social science and business administration. And when it comes to culture and creativity, we would also look at, well, those fields of background. But yeah, very broadly speaking, the social sciences. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think because we do get questions on that, you know, that students might not have, it might not say specifically service management on their sort of course list, but it's related subjects that they have covered. So
yeah, that happens quite seldom.
Yeah.
That people have a service studies or service management background. They when we look at the courses that the students have taken when they are applying to us, these courses are quite broad.
Yeah.
So we would usually go in and look at the specific diplomas to see what they have done.
Yeah.
Maybe perhaps we should add something there, and that is that it's very good to have a proficiency not only in written English, but also in spoken English, right? Because one of the ways that we work in the program is that we help you create a network. That's one of the big takeaways that students say, that when they leave the department, my network is very important for me, and we help you create that. But in order to talk with other students and in order to talk with the teachers, you need to be proficient also in spoken English.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So, we try to stress that as well. We have contact with a lot of applicants, and you know, they might be worried about an English test and so on. And it's the test score is one thing, or you know, that you've studied in English before, but can you actually freely speak and network, as you say, Ellen? I think that's a very important point. We got a couple of questions here related to the tourism specializations and what we were talking about in terms of backgrounds. And there's one question here. This is somebody applying to the tourism specialization, and they are saying that they have a first degree in hospitality and tourism management. So is that a common background, or is that a background that you would accept, generally speaking? Hard to see transcripts perhaps, but
yeah. Yes, it is a common background, and yes, this is something that we would look positive on. We would always go in and look at the specific courses. But I mean, people having studied hospitality, that is very close to the tourism education that we have.
Yes, excuse me, got a bit of a cough. And how many students do you, we mentioned this right in the beginning, but this might have been somebody who jumped in slightly late. How many students do you usually accept into the different specializations, and in this case, specifically for tourism? And are there any limits? Do you have a maximum number of seats?
Well, we would have 20 persons for the tourism specializations that we would like to have in the class. Sometimes we would start off with a bit of a higher number, and for some specializations sometimes we would be a bit lower in that number. So right now we can see that our two larger specializations are sustainability and supply chain. And tourism is in the middle, and our specializations that were a bit smaller last year were culture and creativity management and retail. But that it changes a bit from year to year also. So it's hard to make prognosis on what the situation will be next time, but this time it was like this.
Yeah, okay. We got a couple of questions also on when it comes to outcome and job possibilities and research. But before we get there, I want to stay a little bit more on the content of the program, and then we can sort of follow on when we come to outcomes a little bit later here. But when it comes to the program structure, we talked a little bit about it, that some courses are common and some are specializations. But can you sort of describe more the general structure of the program? So, you know, from semester to semester, kind of what kind of courses do you study? Is there a certain block of methodology and then you go on to your specialization, or what does the structure look like of the program?
Yeah, the structure is that we would shift from large classes to smaller ones. And this is relatively new, and we have changed it because the students, well, we got the comments on that the students wanted us to do that. So we'd start with an introduction, a general one to service management, and then directly after those 5 weeks, the students would go into their first specialization course, because this is something that many students are very eager to do. And then we would go on with the 3 large classes. We would have managing service organizations. Then we go on with the theory of social science and with the methods of social science. And these 3 courses are the large courses where all students are together. So we are already in semester 2 now. And the rest of the second semester is actually specialization courses again. So it's a mixture. Semester 3 starts with elective courses, and we have 10 weeks, which means 15 credits. 10 weeks where the students would choose either 1 or 2 of our own courses that we would give here, or you could choose a course at the social science faculty at Lund University. So you could choose something else as well. And then the rest of semester 3 is then taken again in the specializations. The whole 4th semester is about writing your master thesis. So it's actually only in the semesters 1, 2, and 3 where you would have different classes that you go to. And in semester 4, it's 1 semester of 1 course, being the master thesis course.
Perhaps we should tell them a little bit how we work in these big courses as well. What we try to do in these big courses is that we try to break them down into small seminar groups. And in the seminar groups, we try to get you to meet people outside of your specialization, because you get to meet the people in your specializations quite a lot. So for instance, you might be interested in retail, but we get you to hang out with the people from sustainability or supply chain and work close with them, because there's a lot of learning to be gotten from them, because they already have other specialization knowledges that might be useful. Of course, if you're in retail, it's important for you to know about sustainability and the other way around. So we try to get you to work across your specializations as much as we can in these big courses.
Interesting. We got a question here that I found actually a little bit fascinating. It was interesting because it took a different perspective. The question is, could you please elaborate on the term service management and the way you see that as it relates to the program? Is it mostly connected to consumption or consuming, working with people, or anything else? Like, what is service management in this context, basically?
Yeah, well, service management is a very broad term, and we would see service management and service studies as a perspective in which we understand to quite critically we would try to critically understand one part of our society that is the service. And we would see that service is, well, almost anywhere. Even if you are buying a product that you can like touch upon, there would be a service included in that too. And there would be a lot of thought being done on the organization of a firm or of organizations. And there would also be a lot of thought being done on, well, consuming certain, parts of our society. So it's actually, it's quite broad. But what I think is determining us is that we would be very close to research as we are looking at service, and we are also quite much being a part of a critical perspective of what part or the role service is playing in our society.
Interesting. We got a follow-up question here. There was somebody who missed when we talked about the specializations in the beginning, and they're asking, could you repeat which specialization is relative to the digitalization of society? I don't know if that was a concept you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it when I talked about retail, but actually digitalization is part of all specializations because it's one of the major themes that we have to take care of.
Yeah.
We will also talk about sustainability in more specializations than only in the sustainability specializations. And other major developments like globalization and the counter development of regionalization and so on, we would take them up more or less in the whole program. But of course, if we have a specialization called sustainable service management, we would like focus even more on it, of course. But digitalization is everywhere, and we also have an elective course on the digitalization of society. So,
Thank you. That definitely clarified that. And as you say, a lot of these subjects, of course, you go across many of our programs and certainly all of the specializations here. Some questions have come in related to, as I said before, outcomes and also practical aspects. And you mentioned earlier, Malin, that during the third semester, there's space for elective courses, but is there also an opportunity to get some practical experience, like doing an internship or a study abroad, perhaps, or something else during that third semester, or is it limited to elective courses?
Yes, you can study abroad if you would like to do that. And we have one colleague who is especially devoted to internationalization of education and student mobility. So you would be invited to information sessions where you get to know more about the possibilities. So you would kind of collect credits in other countries and in courses that would be quite similar to what we can offer within social science. We do not have working experience included in our courses. We would ask you to do that, for example, during the summer break, that is 2.5 months, and so on. We have discussed this quite a lot, actually. And the reason why we do not have it is that we only have you students for 4 semesters, and we want to, teach you so much that that we would not really, give away 10 weeks or something for having a course on this practical issue. But you're most welcome to do this both before, during the summer, or closely after having ended the program.
Is there any option to do, I know some other programs at Lund at least do that, is it an option to write your thesis in the 4th semester together with an organization or a company, or somehow get some practical insights from that perspective? Is that an option, or?
Yes, yes, we can do that. And every year we do have students who would write their master thesis together with a company or an organization, for example. We also have an organization allocated to Lund University that is like a bridge between the university and society outside, and who would share recommendations and contacts with us. So that's possible. What we want you to watch out for, however, is that, we need you to write a master thesis and that is a special genre in writing. So sometimes, well, we would not want you to fall into like the problematic situation where you are asked to solve a problem for a company, but that leads to your master thesis not being theoretical enough, for example. So that would always be something to discuss with your supervisor. And every student gets a supervisor, and that supervisor will, well, walk by your side and be your, well, discussion friend for that semester.
Do you know, I think it's only fair, Malin, that we tell them that it's not a very practical, it's not a very hands-on education. It's an education where we teach you academic literacy. And Maria, you were saying that you wanted to talk about research possibilities. There are also research possibilities, but no, we do not actually do internship. And if you work alongside with the company in your master's thesis, we make sure that you have enough academic literacy to be able to do that in a professional way. So we look after you, we're there to support you, and I'm one of the supervisors, but I have 30 more colleagues who are there supervising you, and you will get your pick of one of your favorite researchers.
Yeah, and I think we should slowly here move into research and opportunities that come both within the program but also after. But now that we were talking about writing and thesis and so on, we've got a question here which is the following. I would like to know the writing style used at Lund University for research assignments. For example, do you use APA style writing?
Yeah, I think that the writing style is a bit different when you compare them between different departments and faculties at Lund University and other universities as well. This is why we think it is so important that you get trained in writing already from term 1, where you would be training certain ways of writing assignments and getting feedback on that. And sometimes you would do that by yourself. Sometimes you would do that with someone else. It's a way of getting into this style. When it comes to APA referencing, I would do that very much myself. But I also know that some colleagues and some students would choose another way of referencing. We would always say that it's important to be consistent. So don't mix different styles up. But as long as you do that, it's not a major issue, actually. But yeah, what is most important here is that you will be seeing texts that we think are well written, both by other students, but also by researchers that are included in the course literature and so on. And you would do some hands-on training from course 1, actually.
I'd say lots and lots of hands-on training on that one.
Yeah.
And did you know that there are at least 14 official different APA styles? And yes, you will be able to use either one of them. It's one of the Harvard styles, the styles where you have a reference within brackets in the text. You don't need a footnote. And yes, you're welcome to use any of these APA styles. We work a lot with justified true beliefs, if you've ever heard of that. We work with language consultants who come in and teach you how to write, how to read, how to argue, and how to write. Because I don't know who asked this question, but it is a very good question. How am I expected to read, argue, and write at your department? I think that shows a lot of maturity to understand that, yeah, people do that differently in different countries, in different departments. And we talk about it as different teaching and learning regimes. So if you ever come to our department, we'll tell you about the teaching and learning regime that we call learning the LU way, LU being short for Lund University, learning the Lund University way.
Great. So now we've been talking a little bit about writing and getting into research as well. And we have some questions here. Well, and I would like to broaden the question. The question is specifically about a PhD, but I would like to talk more generally as well. What kind of access to research do the students get throughout their studies? Is it possible to do any maybe part-time work for a research group or get involved in the research in some way? Are the teachers researchers? What kind of access and connection do the students have to research during their studies? And then we can follow on to that and talk about what are the possibilities to continue with research after the program.
Mm. Well, we would say that all teachers are researchers too. This is something that at our department we find is very important actually. Even if you receive a huge research grant, you would not be able to only do research because we think that research and education belong together. More or less, the teachers would bring in their own projects. Some are new and actually going on right now. Others are in the state where the staff has already published some things that you would be going to read. Well, at this moment, we do not actually hire any students to be part of the research projects. That is not really possible. What could be possible is to apply for a PhD after the program, but the number of PhD students is not so large in Sweden because you would be hired by university and you would get a position and you would get a monthly well, you would get monthly paid and you would get holiday and secure insurance and so on. But the numbers of PhD students is not so large, actually. They would be larger in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
But what we try to do is we try to get you to aim for, some of you will be interested in doing a PhD at our department. I don't know, do we have 20 PhD students at our department? 15 active students at the moment?
Well, some have, just had their defense. We had our last defense of a PhD student last Friday, and she was actually one of our former master retail students.
Mm-hmm.
So it happens quite often that the PhD students have been in contact with us in some way. Yeah, we have had several during the years.
And for us, it's really important that the PhD students are active in teaching on the master's program. So for instance, I might be the head teacher on a course, or Malin might be the head teacher on the course, and we make sure that the PhD students are there because you need to get to know them, because you should be asking them and not us. Yeah, what's it like to be PhD student at their department? How do you get in there? We have the ideas of how to get in there, but they know what it's like. Malin, it's been a long time since we defended our PhDs. We may have forgotten. Yeah.
Yes.
So the PhD students are there in every single course. They're there along with the other teachers, and you will get to talk to them on a weekly basis.
And I think this is a very important point, that they actually work there. And as you were saying, Molly, they are staff at the university, because as we know, it doesn't work that way in all other countries. So many students are surprised and how can I apply for a PhD and can I get funding? And we have to explain that, it's not really like that. It's a job position and you are already paid. So you don't need an extra scholarship for that or anything. So that's very good that we can get that across as well. We had also some questions about other job opportunities if you're not going into the research. This question was specifically about tourism and what the job possibilities may be with that specialization. But I think if you can answer also more generally for all the specializations, that would be great, just if we can get some ideas of what former students have gone on to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually what our students do when they have finished at our program, that is quite diverse. And maybe one can say that this mirrors how diverse actually services in our society. So we would have a lot of managing positions. So for example, being a manager within marketing, or being a manager in trying to internationalize an organization and so on. We would also have some people going into consultancy or purchasing or so on. And then there are the students who would like to become analysts in some way, analyzing both within and outside an organization. Some would be going into research in some way, either at our department or around the world, actually. So it's quite broad, I would say. And I would also say that when it comes to workplaces, it's quite broad. Some would go into cities or regions. So for example, some of our former students are working at the city of Helsingborg or the city of Lund. And some of them would go to organizations that you might know, and they are called IKEA, and they are called Microsoft, and they are called Google or Radisson or KLM. So it's actually it's quite broad what students do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We're going to head back a little bit to where we started, because we've had some more students joining us here as we've been talking, and we've gotten quite a few specific questions about entry requirements and specific backgrounds. Did you want to say something first, Elin? I saw you waving.
I wanted to say hello to the new students.
Yeah. Yes, so I'm going to ask some specific questions about that, just if you can help these students get an idea if they could be considered or not. The first one here is somebody who is applying to the service management. Let's see, they have not specialized. No, they haven't written which specialization, but the question is, I have a Bachelor in Honors, Bachelor in Operation and Logistics from the UK. Could that be a possible background? I'm assuming they're applying perhaps then to supply chain.
Yeah. It's always difficult for us to say in advance. We would always go into the application forms, actually, and look at the diplomas and look out for there being enough courses in social science, because this is what would be important here. So we cannot do any like giving a thumbs up and down in a way like this, but we would always look into well, the diplomas once the students have applied.
Yeah. Another admission or eligibility rather question is, I'm applying to the master's degree in service management, sustainable service management, and I had my bachelor's degree in economics. Do I have the right background for this program?
Yeah, well, generally economics is included in like having the right background, yes, and so does business administration. But again, we would always look into the individual courses to make sure that it's courses well within economics and social science. It sounds like it, but yeah, we would always have to look within our team. We are 3 persons, and we are going through all applications together and having discussions about this through the whole process, actually.
And one more, Malin, I'm guessing the answer is similar, but I still think we should cover the question. So this person is asking, in terms of admission into the different specializations, do you consider courses that are closely related? For example, I want to specialize in tourism, and I have a background in culture and tourism. Will I be prioritized in terms of the admission into that specialization?
Well, we would prioritize like all students who have like the background that we are looking for, which means a social science background. And whether this is urban tourism or cultural tourism, that wouldn't be the big question actually, but that would sound like reasonable background for me.
Yeah. Another sort of related question is, here we have a question on, they've asked, I've applied to the master's program in service management with a focus on supply chain management. However, the other specializations are also very interesting. Is it possible to combine two specializations, for example, supply chain management and retail?
No, you have to choose. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you've got
have
to
to
pick.
choose because the different courses are building on one another. This is why. But you can send in 2 applications if you want to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
let's not forget that it's possible with the Swedish application system to apply to 4 different programs in your application. So you can have a primary program, or if you're a first program, and then a backup if you're not accepted into that. So right, another question here. This is more about the content, because this person is asking, I have experience in human resources management service, and I have a master's in this sector. Now I'm working in a restaurant or restaurant service. Will this program help me? So I guess they're asking if it builds on to someone who already has some experiences in human resource management and restaurant service.
I think that it's splendid to have experience in working. We very much welcome that, no matter if it's in restaurant or in keeping a place sustainable or whatever it could be, because you will be able to relate the literature that we read to your own experiences, and that is always a very good approach to learning. When it comes to having studied different courses as a background to coming here, we think that could be relevant as well. And I do not know how specialized in, in a critical approach your previous education has been. Also, when it comes to a very much perspective on social science, when it comes to reasoning and the literature that you read and so on. But a lot of students that we have come from very different backgrounds. And what we would like to say and to teach and to try to make possible is that you can learn from each other. So if there is one student who has a background in human relations management, talking to another one that has already worked a bit in sustainable development and so on, we think this would be a splendid approach of working together. And then we are back to sharing our knowledge in group work and so on. So we very much welcome that. We also welcome our student community being a community that comes from a lot of different countries. And usually we would have students from at least 3 or 4 continents at the same time. And this does something to a learning community. It's not always easy, because if there are 90 persons in class, you have also learned how to learn in maybe not 90 different ways, but at least 80. So this is what we put a lot of time and effort on.
Thank you. There's one question I think we need to address, simply because we know that this situation happens every year, and that is that at Lund University we have another program at the Faculty of Engineering in logistics and supply chain management. And sometimes we see that students tend to just see, oh, supply chain management, I'm interested in that. And then they go for service management, supply chain management, and logistics and supply chain management at the Faculty of Engineering. Could we once and for all iron this out. Who should apply to which program and what is the difference and so on.
Yes. So the short version of the answer is that these programs are taught at different faculties, and different faculty means that you will get a whole different kind of approach. We are a social science faculty, so we would deal with logistics in relation to the society that surrounds it, and also the service that is included. We would also have a very critical approach. We would learn how to understand certain theories that lead to logistics being done in place. In a logistics program taught at a technical faculty, you would learn, for example, the model. This is how you do when you are working on the spot. And that is something completely different. It would be less of argumentation, of comparing different theories and approaches, and it would more be of learning, okay, so if you use model this, you would have the outcome A that is better than outcome B, something like that. So it's totally different approaches. And the one is more technical, the other one is more on argumentation.
Yeah, and we should also clarify that the entry requirements, of course, are based on that as well. So while you're looking at social sciences and business backgrounds, the engineering program is looking for engineers with industrial engineering or similar. So so you would most likely not be eligible to both either way. And we do see that sometimes students choose both, and we go, no, you've missed something here.
It sounds like it's similar, and some parts, of course, is, but the difference is the approach to it.
Yeah, of course. Very practical question here. Somebody is looking for a course description, more detailed description of the courses, and they couldn't find a syllabus, but I think that should be available on the website, correctly?
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
It is available, but I am myself sometimes looking for it. So what you need is an English version of our webpage. Don't try with the Swedish one. Whatever language you speak, don't try with the Swedish one. Yeah. And then you would look for education, and then you would look for master program. And then there is a link called study information.
And you're welcome to send an email to us as well, and we can, of course, provide a link directly if you can't find it. But it is available. I think also on the main page, we usually link to the syllabi as well. So
good.
Another more practical question, which I really am not sure I can interpret, but hopefully Ellen and Malin know. There's somebody applying to sustainable service management, and they're writing here that I read about the essay questions option, and am I to put all my essays in one document, or am I to upload it separately? I think this may relate to the selection criteria being based on perhaps essay if they have written a bachelor's thesis. Could it be that? Or
well, you would, when it comes to a bachelor thesis, you would upload the single bachelor thesis and then other documents. You can upload so many documents, but I do not quite. Maybe they can rewrite the question.
Yeah, if you're still here, who wrote this question, please clarify, because we're not really sure what you were looking for there. All right. There is also a scholarship question here, but we will handle that in our other webinars later this week. So we won't get into that. I will just mention shortly that yes, it is possible to apply for Lund University Global Scholarship also to the service management program, as with all of our programs. We only have a couple of more minutes to go, so if you have any other questions, please post them now. So Malin and Elin still have time to answer that. But one thing that I would like to ask of you is a little bit more in terms of the content and what it actually looks like on a typical week or day or month, whatever length of time it makes sense to you for a student on the program. Because I feel that it's very different the way we talked about the overall structure over the semesters, but even the daily activities are quite different in Sweden compared to many other places. So could you just explain what does a typical week, for example, look like for a service management student?
Shall I go?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't want to study 30 to 40 hours a week, it's not a good idea to do a full-time master's program, because when you apply for our master's program, you apply for a program where you will be on campus maybe every other day of the week. And when you're on campus, you will be ideally doing a lecture for 2 hours, perhaps followed by a seminar, and then followed by group work. A lot of the time, the teachers try to schedule you so that you're on campus 2 or 3 or 4 days a week, not 5 days a week, but you will be asked to do a lot of presence. You will be asked to work on your own for about half of the day or half the time and work with other students, because we're helping you to create networks. That's what you need. Yeah, and you need to learn with and from other students. So you will be cooperating with other students. I'd say on an average, Malin, you'd be on campus maybe 20 hours a week, do you think?
Yes, I think you will be either in one of our classrooms or in one of our study places. And Campus Helsingborg is quite small compared to other large universities, but we have a number of departments, and we have a lot of study places, and we have a student cafe and so on. So you will be equipped with what you need in order to learn. Either here or somewhere else, but you will be asked to do 40-hour working weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get questions from students asking us if it's possible to take one of our specializations online, and it's not. It's not going to work if you don't want to be there. We want to see you. You will meet the teachers a lot in this education.
Yeah. We have a related question that came in now, actually. If it's possible to complete the program in 1 year, is that an option?
No, it's not an option. It's not an option because what we learn in term 1 will be needed in term 2, 3, and 4, and so on. And you cannot work as on a program and study for 80 hours a week, because we will need you to work full time while it's taking you 2 years to make the program. So we would say, no, it's technically not possible, and not from a reasonable humanistic sense either.
Yeah, that sounds.
Maybe the question was, is there is a 1-year master's available? Maybe that was the question, and no, that option is not available, a 1-year master's either.
Yeah, because we do, I think it comes out of the fact that there are some other programs at the university that you can do a shorter version. So yeah, I think you're right, Ellen, that's what the question was about. Couple of final questions before we wrap up. Here is a very practical question. It's a student who is applying for 2 different specializations and is wondering if they need to write 2 separate statements of purpose in the application, or if they can only write one for the entire program, so to say.
The statement of purpose consists of 4 questions. So it could well be that one of the questions is very specific to the specialization, but not all of them.
Yeah. Another question. I have a bachelor's degree in accountancy, but over 15 years of work experience in the hospitality industry, and I applied to service management. Do I have a chance, basically?
Yeah, we would actually say give the same answer as before. me and my two colleagues would be looking into the application and into your diplomas when it comes to which courses you have done and so on. And from that, we would say what happens. It all depends on whether there is enough credits in social science, because that is what matters. What we do not calculate is the working experience. Yeah. It's so good to have it, but it's not woven into the criteria of getting accepted.
No, that's a really good point, because that's important to know. Why. All right, we are out of time, so I would just want to end by asking Elin and Malin if you have any final words to those joining us today. Any final points that you want to highlight about the program, or anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
If we see you in September, remember that we'll enjoy having you with us, and whatever we do it together. Yeah.
Yeah. Elin and I, we are two of the teachers who are in the program quite a lot. So if you decide to come to Helsingborg, probably Elin and I will be two of the first teachers you will meet, actually. So yeah, I would be looking forward to seeing you.
It's nice to have seen some faces before you come as well, so they'll remember you from the webinar. So thank you so much to Elin and Malin, and thank you to all of you who have joined us today. I want to say also that starting in 1 hour from now, we will have the same type of discussion, but then it will be with students who are currently studying in the service management program. So if you want to learn a little bit more about what it's actually like from a student perspective and what it's like to live in Helsingborg, we haven't had time at all to talk about the campus in this session, but we will for sure talk about that with the students. Please join us about an hour from now at 4 o'clock Swedish time. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this webinar has also been recorded, so you have the possibility of coming back to it if you weren't with us the whole time, for example, or if you want to revisit some of the answers from Malin and Elin. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you in Lund and in Helsingborg later next year. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.